Yes. Hi everyone. A very good evening to all of you. I hope all of you are doing good. Yes. Hi Bobby. Hi Suraj. Hi Priya. How are you? How are you doing, guys? Is everything fine? I hope that I can quickly get some response. So you have been working on the different files that we have been practicing so far. Yes, Bobby. Hi. How are you? Santosh, Vijayashree, Priya. Are you there, guys? Perfect. So, okay, let me share my screen with all of you first of all. Just share the screen. Yeah, I hope it is visible, right, everyone? So these are the things that we are going to cover today in the today's class. The very first topic that we have is stack and heap memory. So let me first give you a bit explanation about that what actually we are talking about, and then we'll move forward that how we can implement it with the help of an example, right? Okay, perfect. I hope the screen is visible to you, everyone, right? Bobby, Lakshita, Santosh, Priya. Okay, perfect. So today we are going to talk about two things. One is stack and one is the heap memory. Now you know that all the variables that we talk about, they need some storage, right? And for storing this data, yes, obviously the memory is required. And the point is how from where those variables or the memory management concepts that works in the JavaScript, for which we have two majorly things. One is stack and one is heap. And when we talk about stack, right? The basic example of stack, if we talk about, I hope you might have seen the books that we keep, right? In a like store or somewhere that we can say, right? So we keep the book one over another. And as we keep the book one on the another, it is actually making a stack, right? So the last book that we are going to put is going to be the first one that will be out, right? So it uses the concept of last in, first out. That is very, very important. Okay, stack. So the last in, first out. So the last book or anything, any item that we are going to put will be the first one that will come out of that, right? This is what we call it as a stack. These are primarily used for the purpose of, we talk about like to store numbers, strings, like we talk about string, we have the collection of words, right? Boolean, true, false, and all the functions that we are talking about. So stack memory is basically used for primitive data types, right? There are two data types that we use, primitive, non-primitive. Primitive, which are like we say already defined, like number is there, string is there, boolean is there. Non-primitive are the one which we define it also, right? In case. So the memory in the stack is allocated as per the concept of LIFO, that is last in, first out manner. Is it okay? And that need to be managed automatically. But whereas there are other non-primitive data types that we talk about, which we define, like we have arrays, the collection of homogeneous data, right? We talk about closures, objects that we define, functions that we define. They actually use the heap memory. In that case, the memory is dynamically allocated. For example, if we talk about array that we need to store a data of 100 numbers, right? Then what it is, then we call it as that we need the memory dynamically for the same, right? So this is, for this we required heap memory that was managed by the garbage collector. So we have two different memories here, stack memory, heap memory. One we use for primitive data types or values that we say that uses the concept of last in first out manner, and that need to be automatically managed. Second we have is the heap, which include arrays, functions, closures. In that the memory is dynamically managed, and that will be by the garbage collector. So one of the example that you can see here in this, you see we have a function that that is defined, right? And there we have defined a variable that is storing some value there. Now that value is a number. Now this data is going to be stored in the stack. And let's suppose here we are creating an object in which we are deciding that how much data is required. Now that will be dynamically allocated. Now this object is going to be stored in the stack, is going to be stored in the heap memory actually, right? That object will go in the heap memory. Okay. So this is the difference between these two memories that we use in the JavaScript. One is the stack used for primitive values, numbers, strings, boolean, float, all those things that we talk about. And the one which we define, like objects, arrays, functions, closures, typically for that it uses heap because it need to get the memory as per the requirement. So we dynamically allocate that, right? Okay. One also important thing about stack, it's like a clipboard which is quickly accessible, right? And it's temporary. But we talk about heap, that is a long-term storage, flexible size, like a bookshelf we have. Okay. So which takes some time to assess it also. So these are the two memory blocks that we use here, and we use in the JavaScript, right? So let's try to implement with an example so that we can understand how we can run it and we can implement that. Okay. So first we'll be talking about the concepts of the memory management, right? So let me take a new file. Let me save it. This is the first file that we have. Today is 13_5.html. Let me save it somewhere else. So this is HTML. Okay, so we are talking about memory management concepts. Just give me once again. Yep. So here we'll be talking about the memory management concepts. And let me just define this tag to make two stack. versus heap difference. Okay. So let me just write a script for the same, and we can implement one example so that we can clearly understand the difference between stack and heap. For this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to define a button. Now you all know how to define a button. Are you there? Lakshita, Priya, Santosh, Vijayshri, Vishwas, Ayush, Bobby. Do you know how actually we define a button? I hope so. Yes. Yes. We have a button tag, right? Okay. So with the help of which we can define a button, right? So before that script, I would like to define one button with the button tag, and I would like to show the example once we click on that the button, and we would like to run few of the examples to understand the clear difference between the stack and the heap. So the how the memory will be allocated to that, right? Okay, just trying to relate with that example. And I hope you also know that with all those buttons that we talk about, we have different attributes which are also there, right? Okay. Like for a button, we would like to have on click. The once we click on the button, what we want it to do. We want it to perform some of the task action, right? Okay. And let me just define as demo memory. This is the function I would like to run once I will click on that button. Okay, this is what I want. I hope I'm audible to you guys. Pragyan, Pragyan, Priya, Santosh, Vijayshri, Vishwas, Ayush, Bobby, Lakshita. Are you all there? Yes. Okay. So we have got one button here, and with the help of that button, we would like to implement, and we also would like to show the output of this on some paragraph. For that, I'm taking a paragraph and I'm defining some ID for the same. Okay. Now, anyone in the class knows for what purpose we define any ID or a class to any tag. I can have different p tags also, right? Isn't it? I can have different p tags also, right, everyone? And I would like to show the output on the one of this p tag, right? But how would the system knows that on which p tag I would like to show some output, right? So for every tag, we define a different class or ID, right? To define or to assign different properties, all those things. Okay. Just one second. But yes. So this is the reason I'm just defining that they knows this is the tag on which we would like to print the output. Okay. Okay, Ayush, right? Okay, Deepak, Krishna, Bobby. So we have got one button. That button will perform this task once we click on this button. And this is the paragraph tag on where it is going to show some output to us. Okay. So now we would like to perform some task, and this task is the demo memory for which we need to add the functionality. And this is the reason in order to add the functionality, we are writing a script for the demo memory function. Okay. And we need to write the body for the same. So in this, the first thing I would like to do is to initiate with the stack memory. And how we initiate with the stack memory? Yes, we use some variables that we define, like this is primitive. Okay. I've defined here a variable with the number 10. This is primitive. I'm also defining one more variable str which have some name as a string, Prabjot. This is also stack memory that we are defining, right? We would like to define the heap memory. For that, we talk about specifically talk about closure statements, objects, arrays, right? So let me define one variable here, person, and for this, I'm going to define the object, and this is the object that we'll be talking about, right? Okay, we have defined an object which will have one attribute name, and the name is we are keeping alive. And there's one more variable I'm defining for the array purpose, and array is specifically used to have the collection of the data, because if we define here a single variable, we can only store one data, right? Why we need arrays? Because we want to store more data in a single variable. That is where we got an array, which is nothing just a collection of homogeneous data, right? So in that, I would like to store two names. One is let's suppose Prabjot I'm keeping, and another I can have let's suppose the name is Deepak. Okay. So we have got one object and one array specifically for the purpose of plotting the heap memory, right? Now we want to print this output. Obviously, not to print the output. I hope you have already been through the course of basic JavaScript. I hope you know that we use document dot get element by ID, right? Okay, this is what we use. Because why I'm saying ID, we can also have by class also, right? But the point is here, the paragraph tag that we have used, the paragraph tag that we have used consists of ID, right? This is why I'm using document dot get element by ID. I want to get the data through this ID that we have defined. Okay. And ID have defined is as output. You can define any other name. That's totally fine. It's not mandatory to do that. Okay. Output. Yes. But once you have defined the ID, that needs to remain same. That needs to remain same for the reference purpose. Okay. Otherwise, you will not understand from where you need to get the data. And in order to get the text from there, we use inner text. Okay. In order to get the text from there, we use inner text. And let's suppose we are storing some data there, right? That just saying number and str will store in stack, and object slash array will store in heap. So this is what we want to print, semicolons. This is closed, and I think we are done with our script. So let me open in the browser. Once we run that, let me share my screen with you guys. I hope it's visible. So we have got this button, and we have one paragraph tag which is currently empty. So once I click on this, it is showing me this text over there, right? Okay. So this is the concept that I wanted to explain, where I've showed you guys that where we use primitive, all those things, they are going to store in the stack, and where we have defined these objects, arrays, and closures, all these things, uh, we call it as heap memory. Okay. Is it okay? Is it fine? Yes, Bobby. Is it okay? Understandable? Priya, Pragyan, is it okay? Vijayshri. Yes, Priya, Santosh. Is it okay? Is it fine? Is it understandable? Can you please quickly give me a response? Ayush, Bobby, Vijayshri, Vishwas. Is it understandable, everyone? Can you quickly give me the response? Is it okay? Clear with that? The difference between stack and heap. Okay. Vijayshri, Priya, Bobby. Okay. So the next part that we have to work upon is the garbage collection, right? What is garbage collection mechanism? That is what we need to understand. Now, once we talk about this garbage collection mechanism, JavaScript actually uses the automatic garbage collection. Okay. So JavaScript actually uses automatic garbage collection. If an if we generally talk about mm, an object, it won't be garbage collected if the object is reachable, right? Now there are two parts of the object that we generally talk about. One, the object is reachable, and one, the object become unreachable. That means it has no reference point to it, right? That means it has been removed from the memory. Okay. So if any of the object is reachable, that means it is still in the memory, then it won't collect the garbage. It won't be the garbage collected. But if there is any object which become unreachable, that means it is not referring to any of the class, then it will be removed from the memory, right? Then it becomes unreachable. So the common algorithms that we use for this is mark and sweep. And mark are all reachable objects, and sweep and remove are all unmarked objects. Okay. Now, obviously, we need to understand that how this garbage collection is done. And in order to uh, have this, we need to create object and we need to remove the object. So once the object is created, it will have a reference that it means it is reachable. Once the object is deleted, that means it is removed. It has no reference, right? So this is where we need to understand and we need to get that example for the same. Okay, let's try to implement that. So this is the second file that we are making for today's class. So let me just create HTML code and let's try to build it. Okay. Again, for the same, yes, I would like to have two buttons actually, right? One button I would like to have, this is for garbage collection. Okay. So one button I would like to have for creating the object and one button I would like to have for removing the object. Okay. See again, we have taken two buttons to create object and to remove the object. So once we click on the button to create object, it will call this function. Now that function will be user defined function, which we are going to define it, right? We are going to write the functionality for the same. And there is one button which is on click. What it will do, it will just remove the reference. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. Just give me 1 second, guys. Okay. So, so there are two buttons that we have taken, right? And we have got one paragraph tag also where we are going to print these things, right? Okay. So obviously we have to write a script for the same. And for the script, we need a script tag. So for there, I'm going to define one variable first of all, user variable. Okay. That is globally defined. And two functionalities we have to write. One functionality for create object. And there's another functionality we need to write that is for remove reference. Okay. There are two functions that we are going to use. User defined. Okay. No arguments in that. First, we need to create object. When we need to create object, we need to initialize attributes also, right? So for this, we have already defined the variable user and I'm going to define few attributes for the same. First, I'm taking a name. I'm keeping here Prabjot. And second, I'm taking age. I'm taking it as 31. Okay. Number and a string I'm taking, right? We need not to put semicolon there. We need to put comma there actually. Is it okay? And that we are creating object. So semicolon will come here. This is the function that is creating object. Once it will create object, it will do what? It will create these two variables. And once these two variables are created, then document dot get element by ID we are using again, right? Because we have taken the ID this on this particular ID, we would like to show the text that is inner HTML and that will be assigned object created. Okay, this is just I'm using a statement. Once this function will be called, that means we click on that button. It is going to execute this. It is going to create an object. And once it is going to create an object, it is going to print a statement on this document that object created and referenced by the user. Okay, object created and referenced by user. This is what we are doing. Second, we have remove reference in which we have to delete the object. Very simple, right? The object which we have created that. So in order to delete the object, very simple thing we have to do is we need to assign the user to null, right? This is what we use. Now this is unreachable. If it is unreachable, that means the reference got over. That means we can simply print that. mm, Here we can simply print that on the part of this inside the function actually, right? Okay, not outside. There we can print, right? That the object is now unreachable and eligible for garbage collection actually. Okay, everyone. So this is the user object that we have created. This part is still in the function body, right? So this is the user we have assigned null here and the document.get element by ID we are printing there in HTML this reference. So two functions that we have created and they are doing their own work. Here we are trying to understand that we have created object, we have deleted object, and once we create the object, it is reachable and it will not be eligible for garbage collection. But second, we have remove reference. That means once we are deleting the object, yes, that means the value become null and it is eligible for the purpose of garbage collection. This is the two examples that we actually use. Yeah. So is it okay with everyone? So this is the example that we have done to understand creating an object and deleting an object. Creating an object, reachable. It has got user reference. And second is remove. That object is deleted. No reference, null, eligible for garbage collection. These are now this will be automatically assigned actually, right? We need not to do it manually. It will be automatically assigned in the JavaScript. This is garbage collection that we use. So we have first done mark all the objects reachable, and second we have done sweep or unmarked objects. So the next part that we have is memory leaks and preventions. How we can do that? How we can stop the memory leaks in JavaScript and how we can actually prevent that. And the first of all, the point is that we need to understand is what actually causes the memory leak. Okay, right. Anyone in the class? Yes, those who have an idea. Pragyan, Priya, Ayush, Bobby, Santosh, Vijayashree, Vishwas. Do you have an idea? Yes. What are memory leaks that we are talking about? Anyone? So this is the text that we are talking about. So what causes the memory leaks? This is the first thing that we like to know. I hope my screen is visible and it's clearly written over there. So what causes the memory leaks? Yes, the very first thing is global variables left behind. Okay. I hope you know that there are two variables that we use. One is global variables and one is local variable. Global variables remain available throughout the entire program. And one is local variable that will be available inside the block or the statement where we actually have put that, right? So global variables left behind makes the memory leaks. And second, the detached document object model that we use elements which are still referenced in the JavaScript that will also responsible for these memory leaks, and the closure statement that hold on to the variables responsible for that, and the timers or the intervals that we are using and we have not cleared that will cause the memory leak. So these are major reasons responsible for the memory leaks. And how we can prevent that? Simply, we can only do the prevention once we know that this is the problem, right? Like for example, if there is one resource that is being shared by um, multiple objects, right? We know that deadlock might can happen. Now, in order to understand that, how we can actually prevent that, we need to understand this might can happen. We need to know the conditions responsible for the deadlock to happen, right? Just giving you example, not in reference to this. Here, we are talking about memory leaks. We know that the memory leaks can happen, but for that, we need to understand the reasons that are responsible for the memory leaks. And this includes global variable left behind, detached document object elements, they're still referenced in JavaScript, the closure statements which are still holding the variables, and the timers or the intervals which are still not clear, right? So these are the things that we use. These are the things which are responsible for the memory leaks, and we need to prevent that. How? We need to avoid the unnecessary usage of global variables. We need to remove the event listeners as soon as their work is completed or once they are done. And we need to clear the set interval or set time also when no longer needed, right? These are the things which can help us in preventing the memory leaks, response memory leaks. And because of these things, it might can possible. Okay. Do you have any question you want to ask? Anything, Priya, Pragyan, Ayush, Bobby, Santosh, Vijayashree, Vishwas? Do you understand these global variables left behind? Do you understand these timers intervals with the help of set interval, set timeout that we use? Is it okay for you guys? Do you understand that? Yes. Can you please give me the response? Priya, Santosh, Vijayashree, Vishwas, Ayush, Bobby. Okay. Right. Again, so let's try to understand that how we can prevent that. We need to have one more example. So let me take a new file. Let me save it. Third file. Okay. 13 underscore file dot html. So let me define this HTML. So we are talking about memory leaks here. And what we are actually going to do, again, we are going to take two buttons. Not to save the time, I'm just writing or pasting it here so that we can understand, because we all know the syntax of the button. That's how we need to describe. So again, we are taking two buttons having some properties or event listeners like on click. So that means once we are going to click on that button, it is going to call leak memory. Now these are not inbuilt functions. Obviously, we need to write the functionality for the same. And there's a second button that we are describing to fix the leak. One is for that the memory is getting wasted, the memory is getting leaked. That is the first button for which we have taken the reference, and second button we have taken in order to prevent that. So how we are going to prevent that? Prevent them simply. We avoid unnecessary global variables if we have any. We remove the event listeners if they are not needed. We clear the set intervals or set times if they no longer required. And we are going to print the data in this paragraph tag. So we need to add the functionalities. In order to add the functionalities, we definitely need to write the script over here. Is it okay? So in order to write the script, yes, we first need to define an array. Okay, we are just defining. Now there are two parts, right? One is declaring, one is defining. We are declaring the array. That means simply we have declared the array with some size, but we obviously putting some data or keeping it empty. That means we are having some data which is defined over there, right? Like for example, if I say integer a, that is declaration of a variable of this data type. If I say integer a equals to 10, that means we are defining that here, right? We are defining the value 10 equals to that variable. So we are going to define one, will say here this array, and the name I'm just keeping it as leak array. You can have any other name as per your choice. That's totally fine. This is just I'm giving the name as per the example so that it would be easy for us to relate that. So there are two functions that we have. One function that we have with the name is leak memory. So this is what we require and we need to define. And there is another function we have that is fix leak, okay, for which we are going to define, right? So leak memory is going to simulate a memory leak by keeping the large unused reference, okay? Now, for example, I'm going to define a loop here. I hope you know how we actually define a loop. For example, if I talk about a for loop, every loop has three important parts. One is initialization, second is condition, and third is increment or decrement part. For example, if I'm starting my loop, I initializing, let's suppose I initialize the loop from value I is equal to 1. If I'm not going to use any of the condition, we are not going to define any of the condition, how would it know that? How would loop know that it need to stop? That means if we are not using any of the condition, my loop would be an infinite loop. And obviously we do not want that, right? So I'm just defining a loop, and here I'll give you a reference that how memory leak is happening here, because we are using and we are keeping the large unused reference for that same, right? So let me define a variable for I is equal to 0, I less than equals to, we are keeping it till 100, or I'm starting from 0. So let me just keep it till I less than 100. That's also fine. And then because if we are moving from 0 to 100, that means we need to use here is the increment part that we are using I plus plus. So this is the array that we are using. We need to push the elements to the array, right? For this, we have a function which is available to us, push. If we want to remove, we have a remove function also, right? But currently we want to push something, right? So for the same, we are using a push function, and in which we are defining uh, we are allocating the memory to this array size to this array. And let's suppose I'm keeping this size as 10,000. And I want this array to fill with something. And let's suppose I want to fill it with some number. Let's suppose the number is 10. It can be anything. You can fill the array with anything. That's totally fine, right? So here what I've done, I've taken a for loop which will run for 100 times, 0 to 99. Each time, what it is going to do, it is going to push an object to this array having a size of 10,000 every time, right? And that we are filling with the 10 number each time. Now we want to do it 100 times. I want to just fill a number here that is 10, and For this, we are defining an array and keeping the size as 10,000. Now what we are using? We are keeping a large unused reference here, which is nothing, just wasting our memory, just leaking the memory here, right? So in this array, for 100 times, it is going to create an object for each index of this array for how many times? 10,000 number of times, and filling it with some number, or you can fill with anything, right? So here, what is happening? This is the memory leak that we are talking about. Unused large reference, we are keeping it. Is it okay? Unused large reference that we are keeping it here. So my for loop stops here, and my function will stop here. That is going to print on this paragraph that memory leak simulated large arrays added and retained. Okay, just printing something, you can print anything here, right? Now we need to fix that. How we can fix that? Simply avoid using that. So once we are done with our work, this is the leak array that we are having. I will be defining it to null reference. Now this is unreachable, or we say the reference over. That means we are allowing the garbage collection, and that is helping us in uh, wasting this unused reference that we are just keeping it in our array unnecessarily, right? So we are preventing it because we know. So these are the all the reasons. Global variables left behind, detach document object model elements, closures that hold on to variables, timers intervals which are not cleared. So here what we are doing, we are removing that unused uh, this large reference that we are keeping in this array. We're not storing as much as data required. So that is making it happen, right? So this is the function that we are using, two functions that we are using, and they will work once you click on this button. So this is a one way of understanding the leaky memory concept and how to fix it. Is it okay? Right? So this is the part that we wanted to cover in this class. I hope that it is fine. You want to ask anything? Priya, Pragyan, Ayush, Bobby, Santosh, Vijayashree, Vishwas, anything that you would like to ask? Any anything, any question that you have on your mind? Yes, you can ask. Yes, please tell me. You have any doubt? You want to ask anything? No? Yes, Bobby. Any doubt? No, it's clear. Okay. What about others? Yes. What about others? Yes. What about others? Is it okay? Fine. Okay, then I guess we are done with the today's session. If you have any other doubts, just let me know. I'm still here to take if you have any doubts, any confusion, anything. If not, then I think we are good to go with this session. Yes. Is it done? Bobby, Priya, Lakshita, Ayush, is it done? Okay, then I guess it's done. So uh we'll meet on Friday, right? And then we'll move forward with the next topic. So I've shared all the files with you guys. So requesting all of you to please go through these files and let me know in the next class if you have any kind of doubt, any confusion or something. Okay, bye bye, take care. Thank you.